Welcome to my official 2024 ACC predictions video. In this video, I will be predicting the 2024 ACC standings from top to bottom. And at the end of this video, I will predict the 2024 ACC championship game. And at number 17, I have Boston College. I have them going 3-9 with a 1-7 conference record. Boston College had a pretty solid 2023 season, going 7-6 with a bowl game win over SMU. Ultimately, they had a pretty easy schedule and they didn't really have any great wins on the schedule. SMU was a solid win, but SMU didn't have their star quarterback Preston Stone. I don't see Boston College having another bowl season in 2024. They lost their head coach and face a much tougher schedule. I don't expect Bill O'Brien to do much for this team in year one. I could see them getting a couple more wins to get them to 4 or 5 wins. They have offensive upside with 7 starters back, including quarterback Thomas Castellanos. They returned their running back and they added Trayshawn Ward out of the portal to back him up. They also added a couple solid options at wide receiver, but the success this team has offensively will mostly be determined by how consistent quarterback Thomas Castellanos can be. And I have big questions defensively with this team after giving up 32 points a game last season. They didn't do much to improve the defense this offseason, and I don't think Thomas Castellanos has the help he needs to lead Boston College to back-to-back bowl seasons. I expect Boston College to take a step back in 2024, and I have them going 3-9 with a 1-7 conference record. At number 16, I have Wake Forest. I have them going 4-8 with a 1-7 conference record. Last year marked the first losing season for Wake Forest since 2015. Dave Clawson has been putting in the work and trying to get this team back on the right track. They added quarterback Hank Bachmeier from Louisiana Tech. He threw for 2,000 yards, 10 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions last season, while also completing 67% of his passes. They have receivers Taylor Morin and Donovan Greenback. The offensive line gave up 49 sacks a game last season, but they have 3 starters back, and they returned running back Damon Claiborne, who ran for nearly 600 yards last season. The defense took a step forward in 2023, and I think the front is in good shape, with both Jasheem Davis and Kevin Porter back. They have the pieces necessary to possibly make a bowl game. I like the addition of Hank Bachmeier at quarterback, and the defense shouldn't be bad. But they do have a pretty difficult schedule, and I honestly don't think Dave Clawson can turn Wake Forest around in 2024. So I do have them going 4-8 once again with a 1-7 conference record. At number 15, I have Stanford. I have Stanford going 3-9 with a 1-7 conference record. I do have Stanford ahead of Wake Forest because I have them beating Wake Forest at home, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Stanford overexceeded expectations their first year in the ACC. They returned 16 starters after a complete roster overhaul last season. They returned their quarterback Ashton Daniels, and they returned 1,000-yard receiver Alik Ayamaner. Tiger Bachmeier and tight end Sam Roche round out a decent set of options for Daniels at quarterback. They've been recruiting pretty well, and they have a future star at quarterback with bringing in 4-star recruit Elijah Brown. A guy that could see the field as early as 2024 is 4-star recruit Emmett Mosley, who is a wideout. The defense gave up 38 points a game last season, and I don't think they have the defense to take a big step forward yet. They are a young team and they have a bright future, but the results will have to start showing on the field, and I expect them to struggle again in 2024. They should take a step forward in 2024, but I don't think it will be good enough for them to improve their win-loss record, and I have them going 3-9 with a 1-7 conference record. At number 14, I have Virginia. I have Virginia going 4-8 with a 2-6 conference record. Virginia only won 3 games last season, but they lost 5 one-possession games, and they managed to beat North Carolina and Duke. Despite winning 3 games in 2022 and 2023, they definitely showed signs of improvement in 2023, and they returned 13 starters for 2024. They gave up 33 points a game last season, but 8 starters are back defensively, and they added some pieces through the portal. Linebacker Cam Robinson is a rising star, and they have a lot of sophomores that will play a bigger role in 2024. The offense loses their big playmaker at wide receiver Malik Washington, who had over 100 receptions and 1,400 receiving yards last season, but they bring back the young Anthony Colandrea at quarterback, and they added multiple weapons at wide receiver through the portal that includes the leading receiver from Notre Dame, Chris Tyree. They have Malachi Fields back at wide receiver as well, and he's a big playmaker for this team. He recorded 800 receiving yards last season for Virginia. I like this Virginia team more than the teams I have below them. Virginia has good offensive upside and the defense returns a lot. They should start winning some of those closer games, and a bowl game is not out of the possibility for Virginia in 2024. But I do think their tougher schedule sets them up for a 4-8 record with a 2-6 conference record in 2024. At number 13, I have Pitt, and I have Pitt going 5-7 with a 2-6 conference record. Last season was Pitt's first losing season since 2017, Pat Narduzzi isn't in the hot seat, but there's definitely pressure on him to improve from Pitt's 3-9 record last season. The offense only averaged 20 points a game last season. They hired offensive coordinator Cade Bell from Western Carolina. The offense returned 7 starters, including 4 offensive linemen. They added transfer portal quarterback Eli Holston from Alabama to help in the quarterback room, and he will have to battle with Nate Yarnell. I think there is potential for the offense to grow. Nate Yarnell was pretty impressive in the final 2 games of last season, and he threw for 200 plus yards in both of those games, and he also only had 1 interception. The defense will have a bunch of new faces after losing 9 starters, including their edge rusher Dayon Hayes, who was a big loss. But they added some solid transfers, including edge rusher Nate Matlack from Kansas State, who had 4 sacks last season. Pitt actually has a pretty favorable 2024 schedule, and I do think the offense takes a step forward, and the defense should at least be average. They should be a fringe bowl team, but I do have them missing out on a bowl game and finishing the season with a 5-7 record and a 2-6 record in conference play. At number 12, I have North Carolina, and I have them going 6-6 with a 3-5 conference record. And I'm not really high on this North Carolina team. The defense has continued to struggle over the past couple of years, and they lost a lot offensively. I don't expect them to be much better than a bowl team. Definitely without Drake May at quarterback. They only returned 4 starters offensively, and Mac Brown is near the end of his coaching career. They returned J.J. Jones at wide receiver and Bryson Nebbit at tight end, so Max Johnson has some great options to throw to. But they have to replace the entire offensive line, and Max Johnson will have to overexceed my expectations if they want to have a great season. I just don't like the quarterback situation or the O-line, and the defense has concerns. But they do have one of the best running backs in the country, Omarion Hampton, back. North Carolina will absolutely not be a bad team, but I don't think they will be a top contender in this conference. Defensive coordinator Geoff Collins will have to turn this defense around if they want to be competitive in the ACC. They could definitely prove me wrong, but my prediction is that they take a step down, and I have them going 6-6 with a 3-5 conference record in 2024. At number 11, I have Duke, and I have Duke going 7-5 with a 3-5 conference record. Duke only returns 8 starters, but I like what they've done in the portal, and I actually like the hire of head coach Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz led an excellent Penn State defense the past couple of seasons, and Diaz has experience coaching in the ACC before. This might be bold, but I expect Duke to be a pretty solid team again. They added Malik Murphy, who has big potential, and he was highly recruited as a quarterback out of high school. They returned Jarquez Moore, who ran for over 600 yards and averaged 5.8 yards a carry last season. Duke also returns their number 1 wide receiver from last season, Jordan Moore, and Eli Pancol, as well as their best tight end, Nicky Dalmolin. So they have offensive talent surrounding Malik Murphy. But the offensive line will have to rely on only 2 returning starters and a few of the transfers that they brought in. Defensively, they don't return a lot of starters, but they return their stud linebacker Trey Freeman, who led the team in tackles last season. And they returned 2 of their top safeties from last season, Terry Moore and Jalen Stinson, who was second on the team for tackles last season. And they also returned Chandler Morris, who was a lockdown cornerback last season. So the secondary should be very solid. They added 4-star Kendi Charles to add more depth in the front 7 defensively. He had 26 tackles and 3 sacks last season for Liberty. I actually like what this roster has, and I don't see this team finishing near the bottom of the ACC like some people are predicting them to do. I think Duke will be a solid bowl team, and I think Malik Murphy could be one of the better quarterbacks in the ACC, and the defense shouldn't take too big of a step down. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this offense took a step forward with a healthy quarterback and a lot of key players back. So I do have Duke going 7-5 with a 3-5 conference record. At number 10, I have Syracuse. I have Syracuse going 8-4 with a 4-4 conference record. Syracuse has a pretty favorable 2024 schedule. They don't play Florida State, Clemson, or Louisville, and they get Miami at home. They have a bunch of winnable games on the schedule, and this Syracuse team returns 13 starters, and they return one of the top tight ends in the ACC, Rondo Gadsden II. They added quarterback Kyle McCord out of the portal, who got experience playing for one of the best college football teams in the country, Ohio State. This was a Syracuse offense that finished last in passing yards last season, so Kyle McCord has to be a solid addition. 1,000-yard rusher LaQuint Allen is back at running back, and Syracuse's offense could take a big step forward in 2024, and this team could potentially be a sleeper in the ACC with the new head coach, Fran Brown. Fran Brown was the secondary coach for Georgia last season, and he brought over receivers Jackson Meeks and Zede Haynes from Georgia, who should both be great options at wide receiver for Kyle McCord. Fran Brown has done an excellent job in the portal, and they add 4-star edge rusher Fadil Diggs from a solid Texas A&M defense last season. And the transition to a 4-2-5 defense makes the addition of Diggs even more important. And I do think they finished with a solid 8-4 record with a 4-4 conference record. At number 9, I have California. I have California going 8-4 with a 5-3 conference record, and I think California is underrated heading into next season. It's going to be a difficult transition into the ACC because they have to play a bunch of teams across the country. Cal hasn't had a winning season since 2019, but they did make a bowl game last season and they returned 16 starters for the 2024 season. They have one of the best running backs in the country, Jaden Ott, back. They have Mendoza back at quarterback after a pretty solid 2023 freshman season, and they also had the North Texas quarterback transfer Chandler Rogers out of the portal. So they have a solid battle in the quarterback room, and they added a bunch of weapons at wide receiver through the portal. They added 4-star Tobias Merriweather from Notre Dame and 4-star Mikey Matthews from Utah. I like what this offense has heading into 2024, and this offense should be very good again. The defense took a step down in 2023 after giving up 32 points a game, but they have 8 returning starters defensively, and they added some big pieces out of the portal that includes 4-star cornerback Marcus Harris, who could be one of the top cornerbacks in the ACC. They have a top 4 ACC transfer portal class, and Justin Wilcox has done a pretty solid job at utilizing the portal over the past few years. I think they take a step forward with everything they have coming back and everything that they added through the portal, and I wouldn't be surprised if Cal pulled off an upset or two this season. I have California going 8-4 with a 5-3 conference record in 2024. At number 8, I have Georgia Tech. I have Georgia Tech going 7-5 with a 5-3 conference record. Brent Key definitely has this Georgia Tech team heading in the right direction. Georgia Tech couldn't find a way to win games with the previous head coach G.F. Collins, but ever since Brent Key took over the head coaching job, he has led Georgia Tech to an 11-10 record in their first bowl win since 2016. And next season they return 12 starters and one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC, Haynes King. Running back Jamal Haynes is back, along with receivers Eric Singleton Jr. and Malik Rutherford. 4 starters are back on the offensive line. The recruiting is on the rise after bringing in the 7th best class for 2024 and the 5th best class for 2025. They do have one of the toughest schedules for 2024 though. So I don't expect them to take a huge step forward, at least in the win-loss record, but they will definitely be a better team in 2024. The defense will need to show growth, but they hired the former Duke coordinator Tyler Santucci, who was a big pickup. They also add help in the portal at every level, and I'm pretty high on Georgia Tech, and I expect them to pull off a huge upset this year, either against Florida State or Notre Dame. And I have Georgia Tech going 7-5 with a 5-3 conference record. At number 7, I have SMU, and I have SMU going 8-4 with a 5-3 conference record. SMU probably has the most potential out of any newcomer in the ACC this season, and an easy schedule could set them up for a great first impression in the ACC. They returned 14 starters after winning 11 games in the American Conference Championship game last season. They will have Preston Stone back at quarterback, and this is an offense that averaged 38 points a game last season. They have decent skill position players at every level, and they added Savion Byrd to help on the offensive line after losing a couple pieces there. The defense showed big potential last season after only allowing 17 points a game. In 2022, they allowed 33 points a game. They added some solid transfers, and I think this SMU team is absolutely on the rise. They had the worst 2024 ACC recruiting class, but right now they have the 4th best 2025 recruiting class in the ACC, and they are definitely trending up, and their NIL resources have helped them a lot. I really like the trajectory of where this team is heading with head coach Rhett Lashley, and I do have them going 8-4 with a 5-3 conference record in 2024. At number 6, I have Clemson, and I have them going 8-4 with a 5-3 conference record. Clemson has a tough 2024 schedule, and I don't think they have the offensive talent to compete for an ACC title in 2024. Dabo Swinney has refused to use the portal, and I think it holds them back from winning the ACC again. Other teams in the ACC are on the rise, and they have made an impact in the portal, which Clemson has not done. I think teams like NC State, Virginia Tech, and Louisville could beat Clemson in 2024, and Clemson will absolutely be underdogs against Florida State, and there's no way they beat Georgia. I don't trust Cade Klubnik at quarterback, and they have unproven wide receivers, and the offensive line has concerns. They also lost Will Shipley at running back. When I evaluate these teams, I have to be honest, and I don't think Clemson is going to get back to the top of the ACC in the modern landscape at least next season. The defense only returns 2 starters, but I know the defense will be their strength, and they will have one of the top defenses in the ACC. TJ Parker and Peter Woods are rising stars in the trenches, and linebacker Barrett Carr is one of the top defensive players in the country. Sammy Brown is a young 5-star recruit with massive potential, and they have pieces in the secondary like RJ Mickens and Avion Terrell. I think Clemson will absolutely be a solid team, but I don't expect them to get back to where they were 5 years ago, so I do have them going 8-4 with a 5-3 conference record. At number 5, I have Virginia Tech, and I have Virginia Tech going 9-3 with a 5-3 conference record. Virginia Tech returns 19 starters for the 2024 season. They won 5 of their last 7 games to finish last season, and they had an impressive win against Tulane in their bowl game. Virginia Tech returns a rising star at quarterback Kyron Jones, and their top 4 wide receivers are back from last season. Every single starter is back on offense. The defense only allowed 23 points per game last season, and 8 starters are back defensively, including Antoine Powell-Ryland, who had 15 tackles for loss last season. Dorian Strong is one of the top defensive backs in the ACC, and he will be back. They added some solid defensive transfers, including Sam Brumfield, who had 82 tackles, 3 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles for Middle Tennessee last season. Virginia Tech is a big sleeper heading into 2024, and I have them going 9-3 with a 5-3 conference record for 2024. At number 4, I have Louisville, and I have Louisville going 9-3 with a 6-2 conference record. Louisville returns 12 starters next season. The defense should be very good. They returned 7 starters on that side of the ball. Ashton Gillette is back after recording 14.5 tackles for loss last season, and standout cornerback Quincy Riley is back in the secondary as well. They add Corey Thornton, who had 27 tackles and 3 interceptions for UCF last season. The secondary is actually very deep, and their leading tackler TJ Quinn is back. The defense should be one of the best in the country, and the offense has the potential to take a step forward. Chris Bell is back at receiver, and he had 400 receiving yards last season. They add 4-star receiver Ja'Cory Brooks from Alabama and 4-star receiver Cullen Lacey, who had over 1,000 yards receiving for South Alabama last season. They brought in Donald Charlie from Miami at running back, and he ran for 478 yards, and he averaged 5.1 yards a carry last season. They also added 4-star tight end Mark Redmond. They have a lot of offensive firepower, but I do think there are questions at the quarterback position again. They struggled to move the ball against good defenses last season, and it held them back. They do add a very experienced quarterback in Tyler Shuck, who came from Texas Tech, but Tyler Shuck is also one of the most injury-prone quarterbacks in college football, and honestly, I don't think he's going to be a game changer for Louisville. I think they will be a similar team to what they were last season, and I don't think they make the ACC title this time. They had a very favorable 2023 schedule, but the 2024 schedule gets a little tougher. They have actually been heading downhill in the recruiting trail. They were recruiting at a top 8 level, but now they have the 13th best 2024 recruiting class in the ACC and the 15th best for 2025 in the ACC. So the recruiting is near the bottom of the ACC. I like what Jeff Brom has done in the portal, don't get me wrong, and they should definitely be good again in 2024, but there's work that needs to be done in recruiting if they want to stay consistent and compete for more ACC titles in the future, because right now their recruiting is just honestly horrible. But regardless, I think Louisville won't take too big of a step down in 2023. I think they will be good again, and I have them going 9-3 with a 6-2 conference record for 2024. At number 3, I have Miami, and I have Miami going 10-2 with a 6-2 conference record. Miami is a team that is recruiting at a high level, not just in the ACC, but in the country. They've had the number 1 recruiting class in the ACC back-to-back seasons. They've also made a huge impact in the portal this offseason. They added a top 10 college football quarterback in Cam Ward and a top 15 college football running back in Damian Martinez. 11 starters are back, and they returned their top 2 wide receivers, Xavier Restrepo and Jacoby George. They both combined for 2,000 yards last season. The young Isaiah Horton is set to take a big step forward, and they add 800-yard receiver Sam Brown. They will have one of the top receiving corps in the country. They have 3 starters back on the offensive line, and their O-line is one of the top O-lines in the ACC. Defensively, they lost 4 key players in the secondary, which is a concern. It's definitely something they had to address this offseason, but they also have young guys that can step up, and they've been working their way up for years. They added 4-star transfer Michelle Powell from Washington, and they added Hill, Taylor, and Riley in the secondary as well. The front 7 is strong with the young Ruben Bain Jr. and veteran linebacker Francisco Muaga. They both combined for 15 sacks and 126 tackles last season, and both of them will be back. They added multiple big-time pieces through the portal. That includes 4-star edge rusher Tyler Barron and Simeon Barra Jr. and CJ Clark. This is absolutely a roster that is capable of winning the ACC and making the ACC title, and there's no questions about that. The roster talent is there, but will the results start showing on the field, some people may ask. Well, if you're paying attention, they took a step forward winning 7 games in 2023, and they were a knee away from an 8-win season. They should definitely take another step forward in 2024, because the roster is going to be a lot better and they added a lot more talent. They also have a lot of younger guys that have a lot more experience now. And Cam Ward is going to be a difference maker at quarterback. I definitely think Miami takes a step forward next season. They won 5 games in 2022, they won 7 games in 2023. Their recruiting is on the rise, their stats are on the rise, they showed improvement offensively and defensively last season. Everything is trending up with this Miami team. Some people don't want to buy the hype with this team, but there's a reason their 2024 win total is at 9.5. I think they reached double-digit wins in 2024, and I have them going 10-2 with a 6-2 conference record. At number 2, I have NC State. I have NC State going 10-2 with a 7-1 conference record, and I have them being the ACC runner-up. Yes, I have NC State winning double-digit games, which would be the second time in school history. But believe it or not, NC State has only won double-digit games once in school history, and they've been playing football since 1902. They've won 8+ games 7 times with head coach Dave Doeren. They've had multiple 9-win seasons, and they've been consistently good. But they've had quarterback struggles in recent memory, and it has held them back. But NC State has one of the most slept-on offenses heading into 2024. And this might be a hot take, but I think Grayson McCall will be one of the top quarterbacks in the ACC. He's played 5 seasons of college football, and he's been very consistent. He's thrown for over 9,000 career passing yards, and he's got excellent weapons to throw to next season for NC State, something he didn't really have at Coastal Carolina. Kevin Concepcion is one of the fastest rising receivers in college football, and he had over 1,000 all-purpose yards as a freshman last season. They also returned to Corey Collins. He had 14 catches for over 200 yards last season, and he could take a step forward next season. NC State has one of the top transfer portal groups in the ACC, and they brought in some incredible playmakers. They had 4-star Noah Rogers from Ohio State and 300+ yard receiver Wesley Grimes from Wake Forest. They also add 4-star tight end Justin Jolie, who led UConn in receiving yards last season as a tight end. He should be one of the top tight ends in the ACC. They add 800-yard rusher Jordan Waters from Duke, and the run game for NC State was kind of non-existent last season. 4 starters are back on the offensive line as well, and they add Zeke Corral out of the portal to be the center. The defense has been consistently good under Dave Doeren, and that's why I can trust this team. They have actually ranked inside of the top 3 for points per game allowed in the ACC every year since 2021. They lose All-America linebacker Peyton Wilson, but one of the top cornerbacks in the ACC, Aiden White, is back in the secondary. And something that might be flying under the radar is that NC State actually has one of the easiest schedules in the ACC. They don't play Florida State, Louisville, Virginia Tech, SMU, or Miami. They avoid all of the top teams in the ACC except for Clemson. The only ranked ACC team they play is Clemson, but I think NC State catches Clemson, and I think they went on the road early in the season. Do not sleep on this NC State team. We could trust their defense, and they finally have a quarterback that can get the job done. I think NC State is due for a double-digit win season in 2024. And I have NC State going 10-2 with a 7-1 conference record, and I do have them making the ACC title game, but I have them losing to Florida State in the ACC championship. So at number 1, I have Florida State, and I have Florida State going 10-2 with a 7-1 conference record. And my prediction to win the 2024 ACC championship game is Florida State. I trust Mike Novell, I trust the defense, and I think DJU will surprise a lot of people at quarterback. So I have Florida State going back-to-back and securing their spot in the first 12-team playoff next season. They returned 4 starters on both sides of the ball, so they don't have a bunch of starters back, but defensively this team has a bunch of talent. Patrick Payton is back after recording 47 tackles and 7 sacks last season. They also add big 4-star addition Marvin Jones Jr. on the edge from Georgia, who was highly recruited out of high school, and they returned defensive lineman Dale Jackson Jr., who sat out most of last season. He's under the radar, but he's the guy to watch out for because he's eligible for a full season of snaps in 2024. Frencher Cypress is back, and he could be the best cornerback in the ACC, as well as Shaheem Brown at safety, who did everything for this team last season. That includes 53 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 pass deflections, and 1 interception. There are so many potential stars on this defense, and they added a lot through the portal. Mike Novell is doing his thing in the portal. And also watch out for a guy like Earl Little Jr. who transferred over from Alabama at the cornerback position. He didn't do much last season, but he is a talented player. I think they will have the top defense in the ACC once again in 2024. Offensively, there's a bit more questions there, but they add quarterback DJU from Oregon State, and he should continue to develop his game, and I expect him to take a leap under Mike Novell's system. Malik Benson was a transfer from Alabama who could be a top target for Florida State this season. The running back room is extremely deep, with the transfer from Alabama and also Tulafili and Holmes back. There's questions offensively, but like I said, I trust Mike Novell, and they have playmakers who could fill a huge role this season. I think they have the talent and the coaching staff to win the ACC again in 2024. Florida State is going to be on a mission this year, and I have them going 10-2 with a 7-1 conference record, and I have them winning the 2024 ACC championship game. But you guys let me know what you think about my 2024 ACC standings down in the comments below. But this was the last of my 2024 conference predictions, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. But my next video will be my final 12-team playoff predictions for the 2024 season. So definitely tune in for that video and more great videos to come in the future. But anyways, that is going to do it for today's video. Let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you will love this channel because we upload a ton of college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel. So definitely consider subscribing and also consider checking out my socials down in the description below. But that is going to do it, guys, and peace out.